Well, I have no doubt that we could sit here and talk about Star Wars and Lego all day, but we have other things to get to. So it is our pleasure to have Jan and Sandy back today. This morning's session. You'll be learning about graph and Intune reporting. So I'm going to hand it off to both of you and let you take us through it the next few hours.
Thank you. I'm just trying to
Thank you.
find my Zoom windows again because now when I started sharing the main meeting workspace window just disappeared. It's trying to be smart and hide everything, but I actually have two screens, so it shouldn't. Now I can see everything on the left side, so that's okay. So today we're going to talk about Microsoft Graph and how that is tied into Intune. And then we're also going to talk about reporting. And we're going to talk both about native reporting and custom reporting. And we are still Sandy and Jan. Do you
Yes,
have
I'm
something
Sandy.
new to
Do
say?
we need
I mean,
to?
there's it's a fresher picture.
No, not really. The same as yesterday.
With new picture.
Yeah. New picture, old pictures.
All right. So let's just dive in. And if you have done anything with Graph before, can you give kind of like a clap, or you can do it like reactions, right? Or something in here, or thumbs up in the chat or something if you have any experience with Graph from before. I mean, thumbs down means no, I guess. Yeah, and somebody's laughing. I don't know what that means, but maybe that means you really, really know Graph. Anyway, let's go into it. And the reason why we're talking about Graph is, of course, that we're going to talk about Graph API, what it is. We're going to talk about the nuances of authentication and credential flows, which is not only for Graph, it's about everything how we authenticate with the cloud, basically. Get an understanding of queries, um, identify when it's okay to use modules and when we should avoid it. And the reason, though, we are talking about Graph is because Graph is everything. Everything is Graph. Wherever you go in Microsoft 365 core services, being it bookings, calendar, search, OneDrive, Teams, To Do, Intune, Entra, Windows 365, everything we see and do is basically based on Graph. If you go around in the Intune portal, every click you do is basically doing a Graph API call in the backend. So how can we, this session is about how can we do that directly without using the UI all the time. So we're going to start off today with a demonstration, actually. And for this, I have created a demo. And I'm trying to kind of sell a story here where we are going to do some life cycle. The first thing is that I have a user that quits the company, R2D2. He's decided to move on to the other side. So I want to wipe his devices, and I want to remove everything from Intune and Autopilot and Entra. So in manually doing that, we would have to go first into Intune. You have to find all his devices, click on wipe. From there on, we have to go and delete the devices from Autopilot based on searching for the serial number or something familiar. And then we would have to go back and actually potentially delete the device from Entra ID later on to not have them lingering in there. So the first thing we do is I will set the UPN as a variable for the user I'm going to handle. At this time in real life, this user would have been disabled as well. But for this case, we don't need to worry about that. And then I need to connect to Graph. So I'm using here the Graph SDK module, and I'm connected to MBGraph with a lot of scopes. I don't necessarily need all these scopes, but most of these scopes I do need to be able to do all the things I'm going to do in this user story. We get more back to what the scopes means and what the permissions means a bit later. I just wanted to show some practical use first. So the first thing is to get all the devices for that user using the Graph SDK. And using the SDK itself, it doesn't support server-side filtering. It doesn't support, so I actually have to I can't say, hey, I just want the Windows devices. I will need to get all his devices using this variable. This user though, and then if you look at what actually gets back, is we see down here that I only get like ID, and the rest of the data is actually hidden. It's hidden inside a property called additional properties. So I would need to, that is because the SDK has some limitations, and it only returns the minimal amount of properties by default. So I then need to go further and handle this in PowerShell, create an array of all the devices, and then go and pick up all of these device properties from here, and then I can select only the Windows devices. This is just PowerShell and nothing to do with Graph itself, but you need to understand kind of how this works, because this device additional properties is available for us, but what we want is to have this device array with the devices that we want to handle forward. So I personally, very often we find limitations with the SDK. Sadly, it's too often, and that's why most of the times I tend to go back to using native REST API calls. Native REST API calls means I do the full HTTPS graphmicrosoft.com / and so on, and we will show you what I mean with that as well. But to do that, I need to have a raw authentication header token. So I can, using this code here, I can extract this token from my current session. So I connected with the module, and I now have a token that looks like this. This is like the authentication token. This is my access token, and then I'm going to create a proper header, and then this header is now something I can use with native REST API calls. So let's do the same thing here using the native REST API instead of using the SDK. So the URL here is going to graphmicrosoft.com users UPN on devices, and then I will select ID, display name, operating system, and physical IDs. Physical IDs is something I need later on to be able to find if the device is an autopilot device or not, and find the autopilot device to delete that. So let me do this, and this is just plotting the parameters, and I'm going to send this. What did I do wrong now? I did test this earlier today. That's very funny. Why this doesn't work? It did work earlier today. Let me try to see if there's something wrong with that little thing. Should be the same. Can you see it, Sandy? What is wrong?
No, not from here.
No, but now it worked. So it was something up there. So now I have the user devices, and now I have them. I have everything, because I can't, here as well, I can't do that. I have Android devices and everything else. But here I could at least do the select part directly from here. And I will filter out the Windows devices. And then I will have the Windows devices looking like this. So now I have 2 devices here containing that belongs to this user. So the first thing we need to do, and we can look through them, wipe them, and remove them from autopilot. And then, because that is something we have to do before they can be deleted from Entra. First, we need to check if the device is actually Intune managed. We can do that by checking if the device is found in Intune by looking for the Entra ID device ID. So then we actually, what we have here is not the Entra ID device ID. This is the object ID. So for us to be able to check in Intune, we actually need to fetch the Entra ID device ID. And what we're doing here is we're asking for the device, specific device, by using the object ID. So this is actually a object ID and not the device ID. And then we select the actual Entra ID device ID. So when I run this command, and then I will have a list here. So now we will see in Windows devices, I have added in the Entra ID device ID to the same array. So if we compare here, we didn't have the Entra ID device ID. By running this command, I added the Entra ID device ID, and you see that's not the same as this to the same array. Now, when that is done, what we're going to do is find if the device is in autopilot. So we are splitting out this finding set TD ID, splitting that out to find the autopilot ID. And then I'm going to fake delete it from autopilot because I don't want to do that right now. But this is how it would look if I were about to delete it. And then we will, I'm just writing out information here for the demo purpose. And if the device is not in autopilot, we can go ahead and delete the device in Entra instead. And then at the end of the day, this is what happens. So did I forget the wipe command? Yes, this is the first one. I actually missed that because it was put together. First, we do the wipe, which is here. We have the actually the device ID now. We can run the wipe based on this. And here again, I'm fake wiping them. I'm just going to run this now and do this command. And then it tells me wipe command sent and wipe command sent. But I'm actually not doing it because I have commented out. But what you see here, though, when you do a wipe command, it's an action. And that is always going to be method post. And it needs a body for the command that is being sent with the wipe. So when we have done this, and then we can scroll through here to do the final stuff here. And then we will find device is registered in autopilot. Autopilot for device is this is the autopilot device ID. And then we can find this is the autopilot device info. And then we go further. This device is not registered in autopilot. And then we just get the Entra ID, device ID, and then we can remove those directly. If I were running this without commenting out everything, yes, the wipe will run instantly. As soon as you run the command, the wipe command is sent. The delete from autopilot would happen instantly. So as soon as you run the delete command in Graph, it is instantly applied. Does it support what if? No, there is no what if with Graph. So when you run these commands like post, patch, delete, everything that's not get, you need to know what you're doing, or else you might mess up things. I deleted my own device once because I were doing something without thinking. So I managed to delete my own device from Entra, and then, I couldn't log on anymore. So can you wipe and lock the device? For instance, the device is stolen. Yes, you can, but you can't lock. There's no lock command on Windows. But if it's a mobile device, you could potentially send a lock command. Yes, definitely. So this was just a user case where you can get some ideas on what Graph can be used for. And I'm going to go back to the deck for a while and explain a little bit more what we did. So when we talked to the Graph API, as you saw, we did a get command, we did a post command, and we did potentially a delete command. And when you talk to the URI, you need to have a URI pointing to a Graph API endpoint and including what resources you're talking to. We have some parameters that can use like filter, expand, select, skip, and more. And these are very well documented in Microsoft. All requests needs to have a header, which means it needs to have an authentication header. That's the minimum. And then that contains your access token. Body commands is typically used with adding or changing resources. If you want to add a resource or you're going to change a resource, you're going to send an action, those commands very often needs a body. So what does it do? So get commands, it pulls data from Graph. There's no risk in doing get commands. You can get, and that's just like clicking around in the UI and get information. It's always, you always get the data back in JSON format. Post commands provides the ability to post/add data. This is something you would do when you are, for instance, creating a new item or you're sending an action. Put command is similar to patch, but there's one difference between put and patch is that patch is for updating an object, which means if I want to change, let's say I want to change the management name on a computer object, I can do that with patch. If I want to change the rules in a filter, I can do that with patch. But put commands is, if you use put, for some resources doesn't support patching. They only support put, and put requires you to send the whole object every single time. So you can't just send what you're going to change. You need to send the whole JSON object for that type of resource. And if it's put is required, that will be documented in Graph or on Learn and other places, API documentation. Delete provides ability to delete individual resources from Graph. So The first thing when we talk to the graph, as I showed you, you need to start with defining a URI, and that starts with graph.microsoft.com always. And then we decide the endpoint. So are we talking to the V1 graph or are we talking to the better graph? And what do you think is the most common? Is it V1 graph or the better graph? What is the most commonly used if you move around inside the Intune portal? Any ideas? Yes, it's beta. It's we will show you this soon. And then we the beta endpoint or V1 endpoint, then we select what resource we want to talk to, and then we potentially add some query parameters. So example like this, graph.microsoft.com V1 device management, managed devices. This is fetching all the managed devices and returning only 10. So that's the top 10. So you ask for all devices, but give me just the first 10. Another example here is if you want to talk directly to a resource. So this first one is like list all resources under this endpoint. But now maybe I want to have all information about one given resource. And then we do device management, managed devices, and then we add the managed device ID at the end. Then we will get the exact device and all information about that exact device. Some tools that we typically use to interact with Graph when we are either developing automation scripts or code is Graph Explorer. We have Graph X-Ray, and we have PowerShell or potentially other languages. I am not a Python coder, but I also know there is a lot of people out there that do a lot of graph magic in Python. So Sandy, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Okay.
For this demo.
Let me find my screen again.
I hope it's in front of you.
Yes. Yeah. Screen. I think it's this one. Yeah. Screen 2. Yes. Now I have that. Yeah. Let me close this first. So as Jan speak, Intune, most of the time is actually using beta. Why we know that? So normally when we are doing some kind of scripting or we try to find out which API Microsoft is using, there's few methods. One is by Googling or Binging. So we can try to find our search engine that what kind of API, what kind of task you want to do and what kind of API is using. Or of course you can ask Copilot or ChatGPT, any AI you can ask them, or you can read through Microsoft documentation. You can do all of those. But what we normally do is that we just go to the portal itself and then we use the F12. That's the most easy way how we normally do. So first time open F12, you might go to the welcome page. We have to switch to this network. So network is the place that where we can find out what kind of API call that Microsoft is using for each different kind of portals. So when we are doing graph, I normally like to type graph so that, let me make it, so it doesn't zoom the size. So anyway, I type the graph in this network so that I can filtering things that is only related to graph, nothing else more. So for this example, I want to see what happened to this device. So if I click on this device, you can see something is now going on. It's getting some information for the graph and things like that. So the column, by default, it should be actually looking like this only. So there's no method showing. So I would like to do normally, I will click showing the method column. So then I can actually have a better view that what kind of method is now using for the API call. Is it using post or is it using get? So for now, I know I'm only using get because I'm only using getting some information. I'm not saving, creating, or changing some policy. So the get is the one that I'm supposed to look. So it's really simple that I think first one would be probably the first action I was going to. So I would say this URL that can see this request URL is graph.microsoft.com beta, and then it goes to device management, manage devices. And if I go to response, then I actually can see there's some output of the information that I'm getting from this machine. So this machine is ZIT H001, so it is this machine. So this is something that very easy we can find out what kind of API call is using, maybe some kind of special filters, because sometimes if I go back the very beginning page, if I create the stuff again, closing this page. So if I go back from really beginning, what I was doing, devices, and let's clear again. So let's say I only want to do all the Windows devices. So what kind of graph call is actually doing? So I click this again. And now I'm seeing the first one. So you can see it has a lot of filters that's automatically generated. It's actually Microsoft using. So if you are using a PowerShell script, like a native scripting using the API call, using the involve Graph API or web request. I don't remember which one you're using, either both. If you're not using any module. So this will be a really good way to just copy this request URL and paste that in your script. That will kind of get you in some place that you will have the same result that what is now outputting in the Intune portal. But then, of course, you can modify these filters and select whatever you want or change these actions by yourself. So that is a good way how we normally do that. There's another way. If wanted to using a little bit more fancy, automatic generate some PowerShell script, there's another tool that you can use. Should I go to the X-ray or do you want to talk about it?
No, can do that.
I can continue, yes. So
Yes.
normally my favorite browser is Edge, but the Graph X-ray extension, the newest version has a bug in Edge, so it will crash this browser itself. That everything will hang. So I'm not able to do that. But the extension itself works also with Google Chrome, which I have now. I just need to open this. Intune, not Intune div, but that. So sign in again. Here we go. So again, F12. Yeah, it's not console. Console has a bunch of other stuff. I was doing. Let me close this one. Make it tiny, little bit smaller so that I can actually see. So again, go back to devices. So before I click Windows, let me just clear this one. So before I click the Windows itself, click again. So we need to find the X-ray, the Graph X-ray that what we were talking about. So after X-ray is the extension is installed. So I installed the Graph X-ray already beforehand. So from this arrow here, you will see this X-ray, Graph X-ray little icon. Then I'm just going to click on that. This is a new feature, Ultra X-ray, is that it will expose some sort of API that is not documented by Microsoft. But then this button will actually give you those API calls. It's kind of cool, but not doing this now in the Intune side at the moment.
No, and
So
the problem is that these are private APIs. So you might not be able to use them even. So they are not meant for public
change.
consumption. Yeah.
Yes, and not really for production use. You can play around. You can try see if you can do something with that. So if this works, yeah, it works. So it should give me this information. So it will tell me this is not, okay, this is virtual endpoint, because when I click this, it's actually trying to get other information. So this is not. This is category. But this is the one is getting managed devices and filter with the same thing that what I showed you before with the F12 network tracing. And this is the good part in here, that is tell you what kind of Microsoft.graph module is actually using. So it's using Microsoft.graph.beta. Device management, and this will be the graph code. But sometimes this AI or this automated generated command, they don't always work. I just want to let you know. So don't assume that copy paste will just work by default. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they does. Yeah, I don't remember which one work or not, but because I don't normally using the module. I don't like to using modules. I do prefer using this pure Graph API call, because that's a bit easier for me to know which Graph API call, and I don't relate to the modules if they have a bug. Also because we also know that this module is not generated by human. It's kind of generated automatically, some kind of automation generation code that they generate this whole graph, Microsoft.graph module. So that's why I don't really like to use that. If I can avoid it, then I will avoid it myself. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. Another benefit of not using the module is that, as you can see here, though, the module is Microsoft.graph.beta. So you actually need to have double up on your modules. There are some cases where you actually need to use beta, and some places where you want to use V1. And it's really hard to switch between beta and not beta in the same script using the modules. Using that in REST, native REST, is super simple. You just change beta with V1 in the URL call. There's no other change you need to do.
And also doing automation, if need to install the module, load the module every time when the automation to run, and it's also kind of slowed. So the faster way is just using the API call and get the token and get the API call and get it done. So it's a little bit easier to handle. Yeah. So that's the X-ray and F-child.
Yeah, and
And
then
sometimes, oh yeah, so and then oh yeah, so sometimes I use Edge, sometimes I use Chrome because of now this Graph X-ray has problem. But I myself, this is a good tool, but myself I don't much use that. I normally just using F12. Another thing I sometimes use that is that I will use Firefox. Sometimes I do use that. Why I use that? Because there's one function that I actually like. For example, again that I using F12. Go to network, and if I click one machine, so for Firefox, this method is automatically already, they have this in the column. So it's really easy to see. So I don't have to modify anything. Now, for one thing that I do like to sometimes do is that I just pick one of these get, because now it's a new token. And I will do is edit and resend. So I will modify what I have in here. And I will just do, for example, device management. And I know I have a managed devices. That's what I have, like getting all the devices from your environment. And I will click send. So after I do that, it's actually making another call. So it pick up the one that I modify and it makes another call. Then I will get the response and I will able to get the result as well. So I don't have to, I can use the Graph Explorer if I want to, but sometimes it's that maybe in a customer's tenant, that Graph Explorer is not even done admin consent or consent to use it. So I may not even able to use the tool that I normally use, but I have access to the portal and I need to run some graph code to get other information. And like, for example, test our graph code before I make the script. So that's what I will go, just modify the header. And of course, you can do the PowerShell script and copy this kind of all kind of stuff out and run as a script. You can do that too. But this is a fast way, it's the easy way. But this only modify the header and resend, not the header, the request URL, this one is only available in Firefox. They had removed that from Edge and Chrome, so I'm not able to do that in Edge and Chrome anymore. That's since 2023 or 24. So Firefox is now the one that can do this edit and resend.
Yeah, maybe you can quickly show Graph Explorer anyway, Sandy, even though because we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Graph Explorer. So the first time when you do need to log on. Otherwise, it's just only example data. So you log on. So if it's very first time you use that, it will ask you all kind of consent. And if some environment you don't have permission, then you don't necessarily able to do that. But we already did that, consent, all kind of stuff. So what I would do, we will just do the same thing, beta device management. So Graph Explorer is now getting really nice that it actually, when you type, it tells you what kind of things that it's offering. So I can do like this, and then I will continue. It will tell me have managed devices like that. Then I can just run the query. Then I will able to get this result. You have response headers, code snippet. Then I can have PowerShell. So PowerShell also offer you some basic things. It's pretty much the same, like importing the module and then using this command to get all the managed devices.
Yeah, but now you can easily go up and switch, right, to V1. If you go and switch to V1 on the top.
Yeah.
And then run the same command, and then you'll see that the module is now changing to the V1 under code snippets.
And then I go code and
now it's not the beta module anymore, right?
So
like typically this is where I test sometimes my filters and my queries to make sure that it's actually working as I want them. It's a very easy way to test. One thing though to be aware of that when you work in Graph Explorer, you always work in what's called a delegated mode, and we will get back to that soon. There was a question around bulk action, for example, to sync policies. Yes, that's definitely possible to send a sync action to your devices, but you will need to first get your devices, and then you'll actually run a loop action in PowerShell to do that. Because what happens when you do bulk action in the cloud is actually doing some batching, and it sends commands in batches. So it's actually also just sending the command to one device. It just allows you to select multiple of them. But the command cannot be sent to a list. It has to be sent directly to that one object always.
So how many devices you need to send sync at once? 100?
It depends.
Yeah. So I think normally if one need to send like many Intune itself actually has this bulk device action that you can able to choose Windows, physical device, you can have sync, then next, then you can select 100 at max. But of course, this is really annoying because you have to ding, 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 you have to click them. Not very nice. Sometimes we get lazy. Should we
No,
tell
it's
that?
not related, Sandy.
It's not related. Yeah,
No,
it's not
no.
related. But
Let's
there's
move on.
some other trick. Yes. Again, we go after gender. Yes.
We have
So,
stuff
yeah,
to cover.
what's the next?
We're going to talk about scopes and permissions. So if I can
Okay, you can take the screen.
take the share again, I'll share my screen. And I will have to take this thing away. And yes, so when you work with the Graph API, there's two ways of talking or accessing Graph. One is typically what you do every time when you log on in the portal, or you do just to connect MG Graph as yourself. You are authenticating as a user. You use some kind of app in between, an app registration. That's always going to be there. And then you're accessing and on behalf of yourself as a user. That's the delegated access. Then we have the other side, which is app-only access. This is what we access the graph and the backend and endpoint without the user. In these scenarios, what we're talking about here is this is what we do for automation purposes. When we are connecting as an application that just runs unattended, runs silently. So scopes, aka permissions. So permissions are operation and application has access to for a given resource. For instance, Microsoft Graph, which is what we're talking about today. That's the definition of a scope. Scopes can be granted to resources either delegated. Delegated access is access performed on behalf of a user. Application specifically asks the user to grant the defined scopes, or it might be admin consented for everybody. And then when you use delegated access, you can only see what the user is allowed to do anyway. So even if you have granted all kind of permissions or scopes to an application, it doesn't really matter if the end user doesn't have the permission to do the task. So a standard user connecting will not be able to do fetch Intune devices and all that, but an Intune administrator that does the same commands with the same app will be able to do that. That's delegated access. The other thing is application access, and application access is where the application accesses the resources directly. The admin must grant consent for this type of access, and application access is something we use when we need this to run silently, unattended, with no interactive intervention. So when you work with Graph API permissions, we always need to think about least privilege here as well. With that, I mean, we don't grant scopes to an application that we don't need. The other thing is what kind of graph application will be used for the different scenarios. There is a generic graph app for interactive use. It's called Graph PowerShell. It exists in everybody's tenant, and you can use that to connect through using the Graph SDK. But you can use a custom application for interactive uses as well. When you talk about automated tasks, automations, either it's a script that runs somewhere else. In that case, you typically authenticate with a certificate or an app client secret. And this, in those scenarios, we should try to keep it to one app per automation solution and not reuse applications across multiple solutions, because that will again lead to permission spray. So let's look at this one. So the first thing I want to show you guys is how we get started with creating a custom app. The reason for that, I will also show you. So let's just start with creating a new app registration. So let's call this Via Monstra H2 2025. And I want this to be only for my tenant. I need to add this as a public client, and I need to do HTTP localhost. This is only required if I need, let me see, this is only required if I need to use this application interactively. If I am not planning to do this interactively, I don't need to do this. I can skip this part. But I'm going to use this interactively as well. So I'm going to add the public native client and add localhost here. Then we click on register. And that's it. Now we have an application. And if you look at this application, it doesn't have any API permission, except it will allow me to sign in. This is the minimum amount of permission that can be set up on an application. This happens when you set it up. So if we go and open up this one, and I'm going to have a look at the, let me type graph. And here we have the Microsoft Graph PowerShell. This is a first-party application from Microsoft. And if you go down here and look at permissions, you will see here there is a bunch of permissions that is been admin consented already. And in addition to that, we have also a bunch of permissions here, a lot of permissions or scopes that has been set up as delegated access. All of these are delegated access. There is no application-only access here, and you can't grant application-only access to these first-party applications. But I want to use this application I created interactively, and I then would need to do something to make that happen. And then what we can do in here is what we need to do to connect to this application is I need to have this information from here, and we can use that moving forward. So I have the next demo is going to be around authentication methods. I'm just going to do like this. This is the next demo. It's called authentication methods. And for that, I would need to do some things. First off, I'm going to have this application client ID, and I'm going to take that into my code, the code I'm using here for demo purposes. But this is an application I use just for testing. I need to have this application ID. This is my tenant. And I also need to have a secret for some of this. So I will do like this, and I'll go down here, and I will take and create here. You can create a secret. I create a client secret, and never use this in code in production. Okay, this is not how you do it in production. The way I'm going to do it now in this demo, you need to find a way to protect this secret, and it should never be directly inside your code. So, but for this demo, I'm going to do what I'm not. So do what I say, not what I do. That's what I usually say to my kids as well. And then I'm going to take this one and put it in here. So we have that name. Then I can define those variables in here. And now I can want to show you the different things around connecting. I have created this app now, but first off, I'm going to connect using that main application I showed you. So this one, I'm going to use this one to connect. And the way to do that is just by run connect mggraph. So I do that, connect mggraph, and I'm going to do run that command, connect mggraph. Okay, I actually need to disconnect first because it was actually connected to something. Right, so I'm going to do connect mggraph. It then pops me up here, so I'm logging in again. And then I'm going to do a get mg context to expand what scopes are available to me. And as you can see now, all of these scopes here, all of this is available to me as a user. Definitely, David, you can use a certificate. Absolutely. That's a much better way. But for demo purposes, I'm going to use secret. And now I have all these scopes, and I can see, though, I have the device management, manage devices, read all. So I can actually run this command now, and I will be able to get that result. And I will fetch all my Windows devices from the backend. Now I've done this. I'm going to disconnect from Graph again. And then I'm going to connect with the client ID of the client I just did. And I'm going to add one scope now, user.read.all, and run this command. And then we will get over here, and I would now need to do a consent, because it now I asked for the scope to read all users' full profiles. That's what I asked for. So I, as a global admin, can of course accept this. You might not be able to in your organization, but that is something you have to work around to get somebody help you. And then now if I get this context and select the scopes, you can see now that this has user read all in addition to the ones I had in the start. So if you now go back to the first app and look at API permissions, and if I refresh this, this is a bit slow sometimes to update in the UI. Yeah, never mind. I can see it here though. I do have this additional scope. And this is what is actually mattering for my session. So, but I need to read manage devices from Intune, so I need to add another scope. And I'm also going to add read write all. I don't need that to read all devices, but I'm going to do that because I might want to do something more with devices later on. So I need to run it, connect again. And now, because I changed the scope, it needs to ask for consent again. Now it's asking for read and write Microsoft Intune devices. I accept this. We go back here, and then I can expand the scopes. And now we will see down here, I do have more in my scope. And now I can actually get my devices. and it's authenticating again. So not authentication, but now I'm getting this back. And now I use the other app, right? So now I have full control of the scopes I'm using. So in this app here that I'm now using, I have full control of what privileges is added to this application. So let's disconnect from this one and move a bit further. So now I want to connect with client ID and secret. So first off, I have the secret here, and I need to convert that to a secure string. And then I need to make a PS credential using the app ID and the secret and combined. And then I can use that to connect. So running this, and I was now connected. What I did up here was disconnect, and I'm now connected. Did you see there was no authentication happening? Or that's wrong. There's no interaction happening. So if I do get MG context now, you can see that the auth type is app only, and I have authenticated using client secret. What we do see as well is that the scopes here is now empty. So even though I just added scopes to this application for delegated access, that does not apply in this case. I'm using the same application now, and if I now run this command, it's going to give me an error and telling me, hey, it's forbidden. I don't have the privilege required. So I know this. So okay, let me disconnect from this one. And for adding scopes for in-app only scope, this needs to be done in the portal. So let's move over to the portal quickly. Again, go back to this one, and then we can click here and add permissions. Click on Microsoft Graph, and then we need to select application permission. And then I'm going to add, because I'm going to use this later today, this one. I need to add that one. I'm going to add this one here. And I'm going to add one more here. And I'm going to add the last one here. And add permissions. So now I'm adding these permissions. They will still not work because it's not been granted consent. So I need to also click here and grant admin consent for these ones. And now they're all been granted admin consent. And now I can use this application to do this task for me. And let me just get this one back. So now if I connect MG Graph using the same credentials, and then if I now get scopes, you will see now the scopes I just added in the cloud, they are here. And now if I do the same thing here, I will be able to get the result. And now this is happening as the app. It's not happening as me at this point. It's the app itself is doing these actions. There's also a way to connect with device code. It's not recommended, should be blocked. It requires another flag to be set on app registration as well. Allow public client flow. That's something you can do here on the top and select on here. And then you can go down here and enable the public client flow. I don't recommend using it, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave this alone. As mentioned, we can extract the token from the current session. So I've just connected as app only. And then I can do this, and I can extract this token from the current session. So now what happened now? I don't know what
you
happened.
don't have because you were using the app secret.
Yes, but I still have. I am connected, so I can use that.
You want to get the token, okay? But you don't have me, do you?
No, I don't have me. So that's the problem. I need to do something else.
Because you use the.
I think if I use another one, I can't do me. That's correct. Let's see if it works if I do another URL, and I should get the token. I have the token. And then what I'm just going to do like this token set clipboard. I'm just going to show you. I now have you can do and go to JVT token decoder. Don't do this in production. Don't give away your token to anybody. But I can now paste the token in here. It will decode the token. It will tell me information about this token, the app display name. You recognize this. If you go down, this is the scopes we have. You recognize this, right? And this is kind of giving me information about the token I'm currently using. So now if I have this token, I can do this to get my authentication header. And now I have a header I can use forward if I wanted to. But if you do this using pure REST API instead. So how do you authenticate without using a module? Right now, I have been using this module to connect to Graph. So I'm going to disconnect. I don't have any modules. I don't have any headers right now that is going to work. Those are being denied. So now I'm going to add this body with client ID and client secrets. and add that into a body here and run that. And then I'm using the authentication URI, which is your tenant ID OAuth v2 token. And you have to have this content type like X form or URL encoded. And you send this here. And then I did this invoke REST method. And now I can see that this auth contains token type, the expiry time, and the access token. So now I can build my header again. And now I'm authenticated without using a single module, right? Now I'm just using invoke REST, native REST API calls to get the header. So now we have the authentication header. And now we can do the same thing. We can get the managed devices. And I'm going to do that. And then we have the same information, but now we didn't use a single module to get here. Whew. That is kind of, I think this is a good time to take a short break. Before we go on, let me find back to my deck. My deck is lost in space here. So we're going to talk, what we have done now is I showed you the different authentication methods. Let's take a break until 5 past the hour. And then we will get back. And then we will get back to this. Yes, I will share these demo scripts. I just need to clean out all secrets and all the details. And there is a GitHub link I will share with you after. But I will get back to these authentication methods. Let's start again 5 over, and we will continue from here. What I did show you though in the demo was all the different types of authentication methods. And we went through how you can connect interactively. I didn't show you how to do certificates. It is a bit more complex to do certificates, but it's also very well documented by Microsoft how you can use certificates. I don't have any sample scripts for that right now. We might have one laying around. And if I find it quickly, I will put it in the same repo as the other demo scripts. Non-interactive, typically, like I said, you need to have an application registration or using managed identities. So if you are doing automation in production, I always recommend running the automation in the cloud, meaning you run a Azure function or you run a Logic app or you run Azure Automation account in the cloud, and then you can use what's called managed identities. And that makes things a lot easier, and you don't need to worry about the secret. It's all automatically handled. So the authentication we did, it's called, the flow itself is called authorization code. And actually, if we go back here, we can see that for all this authentication we did, there is a code here. It's a long code. So when you connect, it is actually using this authorization code to exchange between the local endpoint, which is your local host, listening to a random port, random high port, like here 59148. And this authorization code is what is being used to generate the authentication access token. So that's why the flow is called authorization code flow. Device code, as I said, it's similar, but definitely not something I would recommend use for anything anymore. It's definitely, it has had his use cases before, but definitely it's a high risk and is easily phishable. Client secret, as I said, if you need to use a client secret to talk to REST APIs, make sure you handle the secret well. Typically, I would put the secret inside a key vault or some other security storage and access it through other methods rather than having it in the code itself. Best option, if you need to, if you can't run a managed identity, is to use a certificate. And it is a much more secure, and you don't need to, you still need to handle the certificate and certificate expiry date and all that, but you don't have a secret that can get lost that easily. So when we authenticate, I did show you that we got this access token, you know, that long string with the token. I pasted in here. In here, actually, this is the access token, right? And the access token is what actually we are using to talk to Graph or talk to the endpoints. But that can also be, I can take that token, copy it, and use it somewhere else as well. So that is something, the reason why these access tokens has a short validity period, typically 1 hour maximum. When you log onto your Windows device, for instance, and using, let's say, Windows Hello for Business, and your device is Entra join or hybrid join, what happens then is you will actually get the token that's in the middle here. It's a refresh token. This refresh token is long-living token connected to your physical device. Like on Windows, it will be connected to your TPM, it will be connected to your Windows Hello blob, and that's where this token lives. And then when the access token, because when you are working on your computer, you don't need to log on to Teams every hour. You don't need to re-log on to Outlook every hour, because that would be really painful. So the refresh token is automatically in the backend, unattendedly refreshing your access token on your behalf. ID tokens is something that is typically used when we're talking to using third-party services to do SSO between Microsoft Entra ID and other things. One example here is it's also used if you use Azure DevOps. If you do this through Azure Automation, are they less likely to rate limit your graph calls? No, it has no effect on limiting your graph calls. They will still see that there are this amount of graph calls happening towards your tenant. And in that case, that is what is the rate limiting. There are also limitations on the graph calls, how many objects you can get back. You need to consider pagination, but I don't think we have the time to go into those type of details during this short time we have together. So I'm going to slowly try to walk you through some more code to maybe see if we can get on board on some more use cases where we can use graph with PowerShell. And I'm going to continue with this graph stuff until like 1/2 past, and then we will move over to the next step after that, which is reporting. So first, to do my this demo, I'm just going to use native REST API. So I'm just going to authenticate using that pure REST API, and I'm not using any kind of modules right now. And let's see if that actually works. It seems okay. I have the authentication header. And I will now fetch the managed devices as I did before, just to show you that I am still here connected. I'm getting all the managed devices and using all kind of operating systems. And this is all the devices we have in our tenant. One is not compliant. It's an old BB8 Android. And that is probably Sandy's old Android phone. So what I want to show you now is how we can create a new object in Intune. So I'm going to now create a filter. Just to, let me go in here and go to Intune and tenant admin, and I'm going to click on assignment filters and sort on last modified, and I don't have any filter created today. So let me go back here, and I'm now going to create a filter called Hyper-V devices. And then the filter rule is going to be like this. Device model is virtual machine, and it's from Microsoft. So I have this body table. I add this into the parameters. I run this thing here to create that. So I'm now using a post command. And I also apply a body in JSON format. And then I'm going to post that in and create this filter. So if we now go back here and I do a refresh, you see now I have this filter called Hyper-V devices with that rule I just said. And of course, there's no assignments to this. It was created right now. And then I realized, hey, I did something wrong. So first off, I'm going to just do show you that filter. This is just getting that filter based on the ID. So this is the filter I just created. And I just want to do one thing now. I want to change the display name. And you see now the body table I had up here, it contained a display name, platform, and rule, while this body table only contains the display name. So I just want to change the display name on this existing filter. I don't need to apply these other objects because I'm going to apply this change directly on that filter I just created by using the filter ID. So this is using the patch method. I am now patching that object, and I'm going to send that in. And then if we go over to here and do a refresh, and now it has the new name. It's now called VMmonster Hyper-V devices. And then I'm done with this demo, so I don't need that filter anymore. And now I can do the delete. And as we said before, there is no confirmation. This is instant, and there is nothing that comes up and asks us, are you sure you want to do this? There's no warnings, no nothing. And I do F8 now, boom, I run the command, and I refresh. This filter is gone. So if you do a mistake, it's gone, and it's not recoverable. So you need to know what you're doing here. So just if I try to again fetch that filter, it's just going to tell me the resource is not found. The other thing we could do here, I have a serial number of a device, which is also a VM. And here I want to fetch the autopilot device identities. So you know when you go into autopilot devices, the only thing you really can search for items is by using the serial number. So here now I'm going to find the autopilot device information using this one serial number I have already fetched. So now I can do this to get the autopilot device. And now if I run this autopilot device.value, it will show me that this is the ID, the group tag, manufacturer model, enrollment state, last contact time, and some other information here like the Azure AD, device ID, the managed device ID. But as you can see, it doesn't have display name or any other information on this device. And then I can assign this here, and I can assign that to get the autopilot device identity variable and the managed devices ID variable. And then if we want to expand data, and for that, I'm going to add this other parameter. I'm just going to fetch now the managed device ID for that autopilot device. I'm now fetching that one device from this object. And here we get all this kind of information about this one device. But if you look here, and if you look very, very carefully, when we get the managed device, we do have some autopilot enrolled through, but we can't really find the deployment profile or the intended deployment profile. So if I do this and I want to expand those things because I know they exist, this is where you have to read the documentation. And then I will get this information, and I will now be able to, from the device itself, not using the serial number, but using the managed device, expand those variables. And now I can get this deployment profile that is attached to that one device. So it's using this deployment profile. This is the device name template, and so on and so forth. I don't think I have time for the bonus demo. I was going to move Anakin over to the dark side and make him into Darth Vader, but that will be in the demo script for you. The last thing we wanted to show to you is how we can use graphing automation. I'm just going to show that one thing I promised you yesterday. And let me go back to this one. And let me go in here and here. And I'm going to look at logic apps. And I have this logic Intune connector status. Remember, we talked about this yesterday about these Apple connectors, right? So here I have created this logic app to talk to Graph. So here I'm talking to find information about the Apple DEP token. I'm asking Graph for the DEP onboarding settings. For the Apple push notification certificate, I am asking for the Apple push notification certificate from Graph. For the Apple VPP token, I'm asking Graph for the VPP token. And then we will parse this information in the logic app. And then for each of them, we will check whether or not the expiration date time is, as you see here, though, it's like 350 days for now. So all of these thresholds in my logic app is set to be super, super long so that in the demo, it will trigger on all of them. Typically, though, we will check, is this expiring within 30 days? Yes or no? And then if that is true, we will do another action. And here we will send information through a webhook. It could be sent to Slack or Teams or something like this with this kind of information. What we do here, though, in these tabs is how do we authenticate? Well, if you scroll down here, we find the authentication type down here that's called is a managed identity. And this is a system assigned managed identity, and the audience is Graph. So how does that work? So if you go back to the logic app and look here at the identity, we have a object principal ID here. Let me copy that. It's a system assigned identity. And now if you go back to this enterprise applications, and I switch this to be managed identities, apply. I paste this in. No, that was the wrong thing. That's the logic. I can also do this on the name, this one. And then we can look at the permissions, and then we can see here we have been given these type of permissions to that managed identity. Now I don't need to handle any secret or certificates or anything. This is handled by the managed identity in Enter ID on your behalf. So if we then go back to the Logic app, and I can go up here and click here, and I can also click Run to run this one. I can click Show Runs, and then we will see that it's now running. It will give us a few minutes, not a few minutes, a few seconds, and it's going to be finished. So the first thing here, it's getting this information, and we can also see here the results for the step. Here we can find the token expiration date time, which is next year. We're going to parse it to find the exact information we're looking for, and then we will check the expiry date. And as my threshold is 350 days, it's like, yeah, it's soon going to expire. And then we're going to send this notification through to a Teams channel, for instance, using this connector. And the same happens on the other ones as well. And this is not something that's easily shared, sadly, because this if I share this, you don't have everything, you don't have the connection I have, or the API connection is not in place, it will just fail to import. So this is also more for your inspiration, but this allows us to monitor Logic apps. No, the Apple connectors. Whew. We still have a few minutes left in my scheduled time. Maybe we don't have time to do that other demo, Sandy, do we?
No, maybe we try to answer some questions from the chat. How about like that?
Yeah, I don't find any specific questions right now. Somebody
there's some question
this is
about is a bit throw off because of all the complicated. I think Graph API itself, I think most complicate when in the beginning, when I tried to learn how this Graph API code, most confusing part for myself is first was the scope, like what kind of permissions. And that's the first thing. And second thing was the dedicated permission and application permission, what kind of differences they are. Then the third one will be how to authenticate. Is it should be interactive authentication, or is it if I'm going to run automation, so there's no prompt, so how can I do authentication? So this is the three things are most tricky one to understand before you start really go down to doing automations and scripts like that. So these are the three things that you really need to understand that by yourself in your own way, because as much as we try to explain it, it needs a little bit practicing. It's like if we only telling you how these things work, it may actually not go through. Only thing you will start understanding is that you just take a testing tenant or something like this, only using the get call, for example, try to do some actions and make some scripts and make some mistakes. So then you can learn how everything actually runs. So I posted one blog post by Ben. So it's in our blog. So it's kind of really deep dive to explain all the details about permissions, authentications. It's a really long read. So it will probably take 10 times try to understand that. It does.
Yeah, and I also like this page from Mariel that allows you to look at the different APIs and what you can do with them. And one thing you can go here is device, like manage devices, read write all, and then we can go down and then you can see the different available commands, available things you can do. There's a lot of documentation here. We can get reports, we can get manage devices overview. And if you click on this, each one, they will send you to the actual graph documentation inside Microsoft that talks about what kind of permission it requires, example on how the request bodies should look, how the responses should look, and all of this information. So I really, really, really recommend this one as well. It's a really good reference. Yeah. I think that is it from this part, Sandy.